My name is John Rakowski. I'm Senior Director of Technology Strategy here at AppDynamics, and I've been at AppDynamics for 3 years. And in this webinar, we're going to be talking about how APM should fit into your IT service management processes. We're going to be looking at best practices in regards to this. And this is a great topic. I mean, when I was an analyst at Forrester Research, this topic of IT service management, looking at ITIL, at the time it was ITIL version 3, used to be a big area of inquiry for us at Forrester Research. And so the topic of APM and monitoring in general is extremely key to being successful in regards to IT service management. So, how are we going to cover this topic? Well, we're going to cover this topic through 6 main areas. Firstly, with a level set, and we're going to look at how do we define an IT service. And I'm going to do this using the ITIL version 3 kind of guidance in regards to this. Then we're going to look at the challenges of monitoring IT services today and how monitoring technologies fit into IT service management. We'll then dive into APM best practices for IT service management processes. And some of these teachings and guidance here is taken from the conversations and the work which we do with enterprise clients. Then we'll look at the AppDynamics approach, and then we'll move into a demo, and at the end there'll be time for questions. So firstly, let's define what we mean by an IT service in today's enterprise. And in order to do this, I'm going to provide a very simple perspective in regards to this. I'm going to align some of the terminology around the ITIL version 3 framework. So in enterprise IT today, we're responsible for delivering a number of products, both internally to employees and also externally to customers. So externally, these products could be a customer website, a customer mobile app. Internally, these products could be an intranet, a CRM product, and also we may provide to our finance department a billing product. Now, all of these products come together to form IT services, so we collect them all together. And so from an external point of view, maybe we're going to group our customer website and customer mobile app into a customer services bucket. Now, in regards to this, when you're defining an IT service, then you're going to be setting service level agreements. You're going to be setting operational level agreements. Internally, our intranet products we may put into a collaboration service, and our CRM and billing products may go into operational services. Now, what's important to understand is that in today's enterprise, all of these services, these IT services that we provide, are underpinned by applications, whether those applications are web applications, mobile applications, traditional desktop applications. But applications are key to the delivery, to the reliability, to the perception of how good the IT services are, which you provide both internally and externally. And this is also important not to forget that it doesn't just end with the applications. Obviously, the underlying workload is also important. So how you deliver these applications via, obviously, servers, via today you may be delivering applications using various different cloud platforms. But the workload comprises of all of these different elements. So the servers, the network, the storage, the cloud platforms which you're using to deliver these applications. And so it's important to understand then that when you're delivering IT services, there's a number of components, a number of relationships which have to come together, which have to be reliable in order to be able to deliver IT services in an effective way. And when it comes to the reliability of IT services, performance is absolutely key. In fact, performance is key to delivering great IT services. Today, performance is synonymous with availability. And last year we did a global study called the App Attention Index, in which we surveyed consumers all around the world in regards to their expectations of performance. And what we found was that 80% of users have deleted apps because they've not performed correctly. Well, look, if they're deleting applications, they're effectively not consuming the IT services that you're responsible for delivering. And this is the same story internally as well. with employees. A couple of years ago, Cisco did a global study where they looked at the impacts of shadow IT. So different departments sourcing their own IT services effectively. So performance is absolutely key. Delivering applications and IT services which perform is without question today in today's digital enterprise. So performance monitoring is a key element in delivering and ensuring that IT services are reliable for your customers and employees today. So let's move on to a section and have a look now at why is it difficult to proactively monitor IT services. Firstly, application complexity is exploding in today's digital enterprise, and it's applications that underpin IT services. Applications today are becoming more distributed. We can talk here about different platforms. We can talk about the emergence of microservices-based architectures. We can talk about container technologies, which all add to this complexity. In relation to this, there's more and more dependencies. Applications don't act in isolation. They come together as a combination to deliver IT services. And today, in order to serve our customers and our internal employees faster and faster, we're moving to faster release cycles, this notion of DevOps, this notion of continuous delivery. We're adding new platforms, new cloud platforms, which enable the delivery of applications to be faster, to be more efficient, to reduce costs. Things like private cloud, public cloud, all of these elements come together to make our applications and ultimately our IT services today far more complex. And in relation to this, monitoring tool options are expanding, and this all adds to the complexity of monitoring your applications and also your IT services. Today, we've got open source options, we've got off-the-shelf options. Sometimes there's a false belief that open source is cheaper. Well, it's cheaper from, obviously, a purchase perspective, but when you're looking at monitoring adoption within the digital enterprise, you've not just got to focus on the installation, that initial cost of purchasing and installing. It's also about your adoption as well. And so this is where off-the-shelf options become incredibly important, because normally with off-the-shelf options, say for example if you're working with AppDynamics, then we work to ensure that it's not just the installation which goes smoothly, but that your teams are adopting the monitoring technologies or APM in the right way. And then you've got a whole variety, a whole multitude of different monitoring technologies or monitoring tools, and there's whole markets being developed in regards to each one of these. You've got website monitoring tools, application performance monitoring tools, server monitoring tools, infrastructure performance monitoring tools, network performance monitoring tools. There's all of these different tools, and in fact what starts to happen within many enterprises is that different teams purchase different tools. Different monitoring tools are purchased and installed or sourced for different projects. And in order to make sense of all this data, there's a whole other stream or a whole other market which has been which has emerged and is also important, which is this event management market. So taking all these alerts from all of these different monitoring solutions and then making sense so you can make the right decisions, so you can react more quickly when there's an emerging performance problem that is starting to arise. But fundamentally, here's a lesson here. Actually adding more monitoring tools starts to add to the complexity of delivering and actually monitoring and actually assuring the reliability, the performance of your IT services. And to give a little bit more context into this problem of multiple monitoring tools, a lot of these multiple monitoring tools, as we've seen in the last slide, are siloed focused. And the problem is that when you've got siloed tools, siloed monitoring tools in your environment, they really only solve siloed problems. They don't really focus on what's important, the IT service as a whole, and ultimately the user's experience. And what starts to happen is that teams, when they're using these siloed monitoring tools, don't have context. They don't have context of if there's an emerging problem, say, with the underlying workload, what that really means for the application as a whole, what that means for the IT service as a whole, and ultimately what that means for the user and their experience. You know, if you get a problem with an infrastructure performance monitoring tool saying there's a problem with CPU, well, the reality is it really a problem unless it starts to impact your services, your IT services, and also the user? And we did a study, it was actually back in 2015 with EMA, and what we found was that 65% of companies surveyed indicated they own 10 or more different commercial monitoring products. Well, here's the catch in regards to this. If you're looking at multiple or using multiple monitoring products, that means multiple sources of data, multiple sources of information that is not in context, and ultimately it leads to multiple sources of confusion when an emerging performance issue starts to arise. And in fact, when an emerging performance issue or availability issue starts to arise, this is when you start to see the real problem of having multiple monitoring tools which lack that context, on the application and also the end user's experience. Because as we kind of already mentioned, traditional siloed tools only solve siloed problems. So when there's an emerging problem, and we know that applications today are driving kind of business outcomes, and the business is left thinking if there's a complaint made or someone tweets on Twitter that the app is not performing well, the first question is, well, which customers are affected? And ultimately, from a traditional kind of IT organizational point of view, we're left with different teams which are looking at different teams, not really focusing on what's important here, which is mean time to repair, but they start to focus on mean time to innocence. Mean time to, it's not me, it must be the database team, or usually, it must be the network team. And what starts to happen is that they start to focus on exonerating themselves from the blame, rather than focusing on the problem at hand. The problem at hand, which is the fact that you've got an IT service issue, and ultimately this is impacting your end user's experience. And so what starts to happen is that traditionally, we see this in a lot of kind of enterprise organizations, is that a war room scenario starts to occur. We get everyone in a room, and we look to find the root cause, what's sometimes referred to as mean time to know. Mean time to know what the root cause is. And it can become incredibly hard when you don't have context, when you don't have a unified approach to monitoring, to understanding what that root cause is and what that impact is on the application, the outcomes it's trying to deliver in terms of the IT services, and also the impact on user experience. And so what we see on the screen here is very typical in the way these IT war rooms or business war rooms start to play out. So we've got an IT war room where everyone's trying to exonerate themselves from blame. But we've also got a business war room, because applications and IT services today are driving business outcomes. And they're left with questions such as, okay, well look, conversion rates are dropping, but why is this happening? And they don't have answers. And this is really the problem again with traditional siloed monitoring tools. It adds to the complexity of delivering reliable IT services and also applications. So now we understand a little bit more about the basics of IT services, about delivering IT products to external customers and also internal employees. We've understood about the challenges and the rises of complexity when it comes to applications that underpin IT services. We've also had a look at the challenges of multiple monitoring tools within the organization, the fact that they lack context. Let's move on to now looking at what are the application performance monitoring best practices for IT service management processes. Now, the first thing to state is that application performance monitoring really is a key factor for IT service management success. So let's have a look at some of the key or core IT service management processes and have a look at how APM should fit into these. So firstly, let's talk about the traditional IT service management process of service operation. And everyone thinks about this when they think about APM and how it should integrate to ITSM. So from a service operation perspective, what's absolutely key here is that you're integrating your APM solution, the alerts that it generates, with your service desk. So for example, at AppDynamics, we've got a great integration with ServiceNow. This is a bi-directional integration. So as alerts are generated, service desk tickets in ServiceNow are created, and that link that is bi-directional. So as service desk tickets are closed, the alerts are also closed in AppDynamics. And this is key to resolving service failures, and not just to resolving service failures, but hopefully to resolving emerging service failures before there's widespread impact on your user base, so whether that's customers or IT employees. And it's also about integrating with other tools at this point as well, so not just service desk products, but notification tools and solutions. For example, at AppDynamics, we've got also great partnership and relationship with PagerDuty, making sure that people are getting the relevant alerts, the relevant information in context at the right time. And all of this is critical to helping you resolve service failures before there's widespread impact on the business. But it doesn't just stop with service operation. A good enterprise APM solution fits into a number of other processes. Firstly, service transition. We've already mentioned in the last section about how enterprises are moving to faster and faster release cycles. This notion of continuous delivery, trying to ensure that users, whether they're customers or employees, stay engaged with the IT service and also the underlying IT or the underlying application. So any good enterprise APM, application performance monitoring solution, should help you detect problems early with any major release or change. And here's the thing, it's not just about understanding technical problems which may be arising, but what you really want to understand is this notion of context on the business. What is the impact on the business for every release and change? So through analytics, and via AppDynamics, we use obviously Business IQ. We make it easy to understand not just how each release and change is performing technically, but how it's impacting the business from a business outcome perspective. So if it's a traditional e-commerce application, we're helping you understand, for example, what's the impact on things like revenue, conversion, those sorts of business elements of data and information. Now, APM and the data which we're collecting, any APM tool, any good enterprise APM tool, collects a wealth of data. And in today's modern application environments, there's a whole kind of wealth of data. And if you can turn that data into information quickly, then it becomes gold. It becomes gold for elements such as service design, because you start to understand then not just how IT services are running, and this is specifically true if you're looking at analytics features, but you start to understand a little bit more detail about your users. So for example, through end user monitoring, a feature of APM, and also analytics, so in this case for AppDynamics it's Business IQ again, then we can start to understand not that just that users are using your IT services and applications, but how they're using it, at what times, what type of users are they, what devices are they using, are these customers or your users who are using the IT service, are they your most important users? What times are they using the application and the service? What times do we have to make sure that there's definitely enough capacity to kind of service their needs? So APM is absolutely critical for each one of these elements. It's also critical for providing and helping with continual service improvement, because any good enterprise APM tool should allow you to feed back information to each one of these different processes, help you not just to ensure that IT services that are running in production today are reliable and are performing well, but also help you to ensure, and your teams ensure, that every release performs better than last. Every release is meeting end user experience expectations. And obviously, any enterprise APM solution should be key to helping you enforce and kind of meet your service level agreements. When you're setting service level agreements, what you really want to do is to make sure that your APM solution is helping you give you visibility into how your applications are performing and whether you're meeting these service level agreements. But look, what we've talked about really is how any good enterprise APM solution should help fit into those three IT service management processes. But in today's world, in today's digital enterprise, it's your applications, which obviously underpin your IT services, which are driving business value. They're actually driving business performance. So any great enterprise APM solution today should go way beyond helping you with just a service design, so also helping you with service strategy. The data which you're monitoring, which you're collecting, and if you can analyze that quickly through analytics, should be helping you to produce and guide real-time insights to help guide decisions on your overall digital strategy, such as which IT services you potentially retire, which applications require a more frequent release cycle, what your users are expecting from an experience perspective, getting to granular detail about that information and knowledge. So ultimately, a great enterprise APM tool is absolutely vital for helping you deliver your overall digital service strategy. And we also mentioned about SLAs. And we're going to come on to this in the next couple of slides. But the reality is, if you're looking at digital services, digital IT services today, and the applications which are serving them, ultimately there's one thing what really matters about your IT services. Are they delivering on your end users, or whether those are customers or employees, are they delivering on their expectations of performance, their expectations of being able to get the right outcomes from those services? So rather than focusing on SLAs, what I would encourage you to do is to focus on what we call experience level agreements. I know from the various kind of IT service management circles, if you look at various kind of blogs, various kind of websites, this notion of moving from SLAs to experience level agreements is starting to get quite a lot of traction. So let's explore XLAs in a bit more detail. So what's the difference between SLAs and XLAs? Well, here's what we've seen within enterprises. Firstly, when you focus on SLAs, the problem is with SLAs, it's more of an inside-out way of focusing on availability and performance. And generally what starts to happen is that you start to focus on the technical elements of the application and also the overall IT service. And what you start to focus on is, well, is the underlying workload or is the underlying application, how well is that performing? But as I mentioned on the previous slide, what's the most important element is your user. Your user's experience. Is the application, is the IT service really performing well for them? So whether that's, again, an external customer or an internal employee. And in fact, one of the problems which I've seen with many SLAs is that they're too much focused on from an inside-out perspective. And this leads to what we call watermelon SLAs, where everything seems green on the outside, so you're hitting all your metrics, all your measurements, but the reality is, for the end user, things are not performing as well as they would like, as well as what they would expect. And then this leads them to start to abandon those IT services and those applications. Really, the notion of XLAs is to turn this thinking on its head, to start focusing on your metrics and measurements from an outside-in perspective. It's more, if you want to kind of equate it to fruit, it's more of an outside-in approach, which is a bit more like a kiwi, where everything's green on the outside and green also on the inside. So you're really focusing on what matters. The end user's experience, the end user's expectations of performance. And this is where a great APM or enterprise APM solution really comes into play, because it helps you to move away from this kind of inside-out approach to SLAs to really focusing on an outside-in approach to experience-level agreements. And the reason for this is that enterprise APM solutions provide granular detail of user interactions, and this gives enterprises the information you need to start to create outside-in-based experience-level agreements, focusing on the user first. What do they expect in regards to performance for each of those key transactions? So at AppDynamics we call these business transactions, which are driving user experience and also business outcomes. So I would really encourage you, if you're looking at your IT service management strategy today, to start thinking about this concept of experience level agreements. Are you really setting measurements and metrics? Are your availability and performance and uptime metrics, are they really representative of the performance expectations, experience expectations which your users are starting to kind of demand from applications and IT services? And I encourage you to start focusing again on this concept of experience level agreements or XLAs. Now, I want to move on to talk about another concept, another framework in IT service management, which has become prevalent, and there's been a lot of interest in regards to this in the last decade. And this is this framework of SIAM, or Service Integration and Management. And effectively, this has become very popular in the world of service providers. So when you're looking at managing multiple services for multiple functions or customers, then actually ensuring that you've got visibility, you understand how these services are performing for different customers becomes extremely important. This is why there's been a rise in the interest in the SIAM framework. And what is SIAM? Well, the best definition I could find comes from the SIAM Foundation body of knowledge. So it's a management methodology that can be applied to an environment that includes a number of service providers. So where you've got a number of service providers providing you with different services, which is very typical in an enterprise environment. It provides governance, management, integration, assurance and coordination to ensure that the customer gets maximum value from its service providers. When we talk about maximum value, of course we're talking here about reliability, we're talking about performance, we're talking about the fact that those services should be delivering on end user experience needs. And where Enterprise APM fits into the SIAM model is that it's absolutely critical, or it plays a vital role in ensuring assurance and also coordination. So let's have a look on the next couple of slides about what we mean by this. So firstly, to set the context, what we see on the slide in front of you on the screen is a very simplified SIAM model. So we've got a SIAM, or service provider or function in the middle, and this could be obviously external service providers. If you've got a very large enterprise, maybe you've got a SIAM function within your enterprise. And effectively, the whole remit of the service provider or this function is to ensure that they're managing the delivery of various services, which could be coming from various different providers, and making sure that these services are providing what's expected to different businesses. It could be, if it's an external service provider, they may be providing this to different businesses, or it could be to various different functions internally in the business. And the role of the SIAM function here is to make sure that these services are delivering on expectations, that they're available, that they're performing, that they're delivering on those end user experience needs. So let's address how a good or great enterprise APM solution can really help when it comes to providing assurance in a SIAM framework or model. So in fact, what I'm kind of talking to you about here is something which one of our partners is doing. This is Capgemini, in regards to helping provide services and applications to their customers. So from an assurance perspective, if you've got a great enterprise APM solution, obviously you're going to be monitoring end-to-end. You're going to be focusing on these experience level agreements. And so really understanding how services are performing from an end user experience perspective. Now, if you're monitoring end-to-end in a unified fashion, then a great enterprise APM solution can help you detect emerging third-party service problems before business or function impact. So once a problem starts to arise, and many, if you take, for example, AppDynamics, we use dynamic baselines, we start to understand and we start to give you visibility into any emerging problem which is starting to arise, any emerging performance or availability issue. Which means from a SIAM perspective, if you're operating in a SIAM function, you can start to work out how to respond in the best way before there's actually impact on the customers or the business functions that you are serving. So this means if you're operating in a SIAM model or function like this, you can then have the right information in context, not just the technical information about what problem is starting to emerge, but because you're looking at the business-centric information, and a great enterprise APM solution lets you do this, you can start to understand what's the best possible course of action also from a business perspective. And again, you're going to be using those experience level agreements. Now, with any APM solution, as you start to generate alerts, you can also start to automate workflows for the best possible response. And ultimately, this means that your various business functions or businesses or functions that you're serving are not going to get impacted by this emerging problem. Now, if they're not being impacted, it means that their customers, their users are also not being impacted. So you can see from an assurance perspective why enterprise APM is absolutely critical to the SIAM model. Now let's talk about coordination. Now I already mentioned earlier on when we were talking about how APM fits into various IT service management processes, but it's not just about service operation. The wealth of information, the wealth of data which you're going to collect from monitoring applications, from monitoring various IT services, and whether this data is technical data or business data, really starts to help you to coordinate various kind of release strategies for different business units or specific functions or customers. So if you're looking at planning when you should be releasing a major update for a IT service, obviously underpinned by an application, then having this APM information, understanding when the peak periods of business activity is for the IT service, when users are interacting with the various applications, how and when, and where are these users interacting with these applications, really starts to give you more of that granular level of insight to really help you to plan and coordinate any of those change or release windows which you'll be kind of setting up for different business functions or customers. So this information, this technical and business information, which is in context, obviously your end user's experience, can really help make sure that when you're deciding, when you're planning release strategies, that you're focusing again from an outside-in perspective. And this is where a great enterprise APM solution comes in. But using analytics, for example, again from AppDynamics and Business IQ, it's not just about ensuring the smooth delivery of those new features or applications, but it's also helping and working with the functions or your various customers to understand what the business impact, what the business value has been of each one of these releases and changes. Because a great enterprise APM solution, one that focuses not just on application but also business performance monitoring, can give you that insight, can give you dashboards which really show how each release is driving business value. Okay, so we've addressed a number of the core concepts. We've addressed core concepts such as what is an IT service. We've addressed concepts about the fact that applications underpin IT services, and these applications are becoming more complex and it's becoming more difficult to monitor them. We've discussed then about how APM is critical to various IT service management processes, about how we need to focus away from SLAs to XLAs. We also talked about the SIAM framework, which is particularly relevant to service providers. But what I want to go into a bit more detail now is our approach. How do we fit into these best practices at AppDynamics in regards to IT service management. So firstly, let's level set what we mean when we talk about an application performance monitoring solution. Now the best, simplest definition actually comes from Gartner when they define what an application performance monitoring solution or suite should comprise of. So it should comprise of digital experience monitoring, being able to monitor your end user's experience, but also increasingly in today's world, it's also about those interactions with a service or application which may come from a machine, which may be started from a machine. If you think about the world of IoT, it may not be a traditional end user which initiates an interaction with an application or service. What's also key from an enterprise APM solution today is that it must provide granular application discovery, so complete end-to-end discovery of any complex application. It must provide tracing here, help you understand what those key, what we call AppDynamics business transactions are, those transactions which are key to user experience and also business outcomes. On an emerging problem then, it must also make it very easy for you to kind of drill down to understand what the root cause is. So through machine learning, it must understand what or how those applications are being used, those IT services. What are the kind of the important periods of business activity for those services and applications? And it must have application analytics features. It must go beyond just monitoring. It must go beyond just keeping the lights on, making sure that those IT services and applications are reliable, to help you to start make insights, to analyze data very, very quickly in real time, user data with application performance data and business outcome data, to be able to help you to improve and feed back information into your IT service management processes. So using this framework, let's apply these characteristics or these features to what we do at AppDynamics. So firstly, from a digital experience monitoring perspective, what we do at AppDynamics is unique on the market. Because what we do is that we monitor every single interaction and transaction which is initiated from either an end user or it could be from a machine in an IoT-based service. And what we do is that we automatically tag and trace these transactions. And then what we do is we kind of bring this data together into what we call our atomic unit of measurement. So we bring this data together and try and understand which transactions are key to end user experience and also business outcomes. And we bring this data together into our unique unit of measurement, which is called a business transaction. So straight away, your support teams, your IT service management teams, not only see the application and how it's performing, but understand how each of those business transactions, which are key to user experience and also business outcomes, how are they performing? Because that's the most important element. So for example, if you're taking an e-commerce application, or let's take actually a banking application, what we can understand is those core business transactions such as login, such as process payment, search, withdraw funds. We automatically discover and identify them and then start to monitor them. We start to create dynamic baselines in regards to their performance. So we don't use static thresholds, which means that any alerts which are generated are relevant, and you can be guaranteed that they're relevant to understanding the end user's performance and experience expectations. And this information is absolutely key then to help you drive this kind of approach to experience level agreements, this outside-in approach of focusing on what really matters, the end user's expectations of performance. Secondly, the AppDynamics AppIQ platform was designed and built to run in very complex, very distributed enterprise environments, and it kind of performs extremely well in a production environment. And effectively what we do is that we map out the complete end-to-end architecture of your application. So we watch these transactions as they flow completely end-to-end. We monitor and baseline every single metric, whether that's a technical metric or a business metric, and we're monitoring and ingesting a phenomenal amount of data. which means that through machine learning, we've got automated anomaly detection. If there's any problem, not just with the end user experience, but with the application itself and its performance, we'll help you identify that very, very quickly before it becomes a business problem. And because we're doing dynamic baselining here using machine learning, it means that every alert is relevant again, which helps you prevent IT alert storms. And we provide very kind of rich dashboards which show flow maps, which show your application completely from an end-to-end perspective. Every component, every tier, every database transaction, every message queue, all of these different elements are shown on our flow maps. And then, when there is an emerging problem, we can make it very easy for you to get down to that root cause, for you to find what is that cause of that emerging issue. So I talked about earlier that mean time to know being the most important element of mean time to repair. Well, we make it very easy and fast for you to detect what that root cause is. But we go beyond that. I mentioned when it comes to ITSM, it's about integrating with various service desks, and I mentioned about our great integration and partnership with ServiceNow. So effectively, our integration helps feed application performance and business performance data into the ServiceNow CMDB or the ServiceNow service model. So we take this data and we are able to pass it bidirectionally and seamlessly into ServiceNow. The benefit of this is that it means that if you're looking at ServiceNow, if your support teams are focusing on the ServiceNow console, they'll gain all of this information in context of the application, and also in context from a business perspective, which means that when you're ingesting lots and lots of events, AppDynamics is absolutely key in this respect to helping you identify what information really matters when it comes to the application and the end user's experience. And so this integration is very easy to kind of implement, and it's also seamless with ServiceNow. And finally, from an application analytics perspective, one of the things we're very proud of at AppDynamics is our development of Business IQ, the ability to easily, rapidly correlate both end-user experience metrics and data with application performance data and also business outcome data, which means that from an IT service management perspective, you're able to use AppDynamics to help you improve, to help you optimize your overall service strategy and your software delivery lifecycle. So you can create dashboards very easily which show the business health of each application that is underpinning an IT service. You can specifically look at the user journey for each application, how user experience is manifesting to various users, and to get down to that granular detail when it comes to a user experience to help you set those XLAs. And we also help you prove and ensure that every release not only performs from a technical perspective, but also from a business perspective. You can do comparisons of each release very easily using dashboards in order to help ensure that your release strategy is actually driving business value and also business outcomes.
Okay, now on to a quick short demo so I can emphasize some of the things which I talked about during the slides. So effectively what you see in front of you is the AppDynamics flow map. So from an IT service management point of view, obviously one of the first things that you want to be able to do, especially for service operation, is to have full visibility of your application in regards to its architecture and also the resource utilization or its kind of health. And AppDynamics, when you deploy our intelligent agents, automatically maps out any complex application architecture. It does that in real time and gives you this architecture flow map. So on this flow map, we can see all the components of the application. We can see that it's making calls into another application in the cloud. We can see the various different message queues, backend databases here. So we've got MySQL, also MongoDB, and this application is a mixture of Node.js and also Java. So it's an incredibly complex application, and it's underpinning our customer-facing IT service, which is AD Financial Services. Now, what I also mentioned, what AppDynamics does, which is unique, is that we also identify all of what we call business transactions. These are transactions which are key to user experience and also to business outcomes. So we've automatically identified these on installation. So from an experience level agreement perspective, we now can start focusing on the fact that of generating XLAs which are more outside in focused on the needs of our user and their expectations of performance. I want to kind of orientate you to a different view now. So that was a pretty complex view, but if you're looking at showing the services which you're providing, showing the applications which you're providing to executives in the business, and AppDynamics makes this also very easy to do. So here we have all our business transactions which were identified, laid out logically in a customer or user journey. So straight away from, if you're monitoring and trying to look at the availability of IT services or applications and how they're performing, we can easily see this. We can also kind of create service views as well. So these are actually showing microservices, but it is very easy at AppDynamics to take very technical information or business-centric information and create dashboards like what you see on the screen here. So you can see we've got a problem with process trade. If I was to click onto that, I can then drill down and understand exactly what the root cause is to that problem. Now, I'm not a developer. Maybe the people who work in our service desk are not, maybe they don't know the code, they've not developed the application, maybe it's provided by a third party, maybe it's provided by a SIAM provider. So AppDynamics makes it very easy to get down to the root cause, because on an emerging problem we start to take very detailed snapshots about what was happening in that application at that particular moment in time. So in this case we can see that in regards to process, in regards to one of these problems here, we can see that there's time being spent in this procedure over here, which is an Oracle query. And because we do unified monitoring, we can get down to what the root cause is and even the exact SQL query which is causing the issue. Okay, so I talked about XLAs and within or experience level agreements, and within AppDynamics we make it very easy to set up new experience level agreements. So you can base this on a number of elements of criteria, the application itself. You can also get down to the specific transactions. So here we're setting up a experience level agreement specifically for the business transaction login, and we can then set what our compliance targets is in regards to thresholds. And again, AppDynamics dynamically baselines every single metric and every single transaction. We can also put in exclusion periods as well, so times when this experience level agreement is not in place. So we make it very easy then to start taking that outside in view to creating experience level agreements to make sure that you're not left with that watermelon SLA, but you're really focusing on that more that kind of kiwi focused of green on the outside and also green on the inside. So we help you very quickly to start focusing on outside in based experience level agreements. Now, I also talked about the fact that it's about business metrics and business performance monitoring when it comes to AppDynamics. So at a glance, we can create dashboards like what you see on the screen here, which combine both user experience type metrics with application performance and also business performance data. So here we can see the number of unique sessions, so more user specific data. We can see business data like offers given. We can see exactly where they're going through in a conversion funnel in regards to, in this case, it's an e-commerce based application. So we make it very easy to take all this information and present it in a simple way. And this is extremely important when you're feeding back information earlier into those other IT service management processes like service design and also service strategy. And finally, when we're looking at releases, and you're looking at release strategy, now saying this is really important in a SIAM model, we make it very easy to do a comparison between one release, between one version of an application or one version of a service and another version of the service. And again, we're not just looking at technical metrics here, we're combining both user metrics with application performance metrics and also business performance metrics. So on the screen here we can see, well, in regards to our new release, we've completely increased the number of active user sessions And it's been successful from a business perspective as well, because our conversion rate has increased and our revenue by version has also increased as well. And again, as you just saw on the screen, all of these dashboards are updated in real time. And that's really the power of AppDynamics. We don't just focus on application performance monitoring. In the last 2 years, we've moved to business performance monitoring of Business IQ, making it very easy to interrogate both and analyze both user engagement with application performance and business outcome based metrics. So I hope that was helpful. I'm going to go back to the slides.
So I hope this webinar is useful or has been useful for you. So some recommendations. In the next 10 days, after this webinar, I want you to audit your current application performance monitoring or monitoring toolset and ask yourself the following questions. Are the alerts generated business relevant? Are the tools regularly used, not only just during a major incident? Do they feed back and provide information to those various other IT service management processes, ultimately up to kind of the service strategy process? And do you and your teams trust your current tools to detect application and service issues before widespread customer impact? Because if you're looking at IT services, again, the most important element is your end user, their experience. Are relevant service desk tickets being created in your service desk? Beyond 10 days, make sure that application performance monitoring is a strategic priority. You can't do IT service management well, you can't do the SIAM framework well without a good enterprise APM solution. And going forward, just the best practice when it comes to IT services in general, make sure that any architecture design or project includes a plan for monitoring. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Alyssa for some questions.
Great. Thank you, John, for that great presentation. So as you did mention, we are going to be going into the Q&A portion now. So we have some great questions that have come through already, so we'll try to get through as much as we can. So let's just get started. So John, the first question that has come through is, so you mentioned how important it is to feed back information into other IT service management processes like service design, but can you take data out of AppDynamics into other products?
Yes, you can, Alyssa. So AppDynamics is a platform. We're an API-based platform. We use open REST APIs. So you can take data out of AppDynamics. You can put it into any kind of service desk or any kind of other products that you want this data to be in. So whether you're using different products to present information to different audiences, or you want to kind of integrate it maybe with a CMDB, it is possible to do. You also saw on the when I was presenting that we've got a great integration with ServiceNow, where we make that we kind of make that seamless in regards to taking data out of AppDynamics into the ServiceNow CMDB. But in short, yes, it is simple. We're a platform which uses open APIs.
Great, thanks, John. The next question, could you share some more examples of XLAs?
Yeah, so we brought in the XLA feature on our last release, but let's go take one step back. XLAs really is a concept. It's been discussed widely in the kind of field of IT service management. There's a lot of different blogs on this. It really gets you to start thinking not from like an inside-out approach, but more to an outside-in approach when you're defining what those effectively service-level agreements should be. So some examples, and I showed in the demo that you could actually create XLAs based on specific business transactions or specific interactions in your application or service and start monitoring from that perspective. So all of this is really about ensuring that you're not taking an inside-out approach to monitoring. So you're not just looking at the technical elements or traditional OLA components, but you can set SLAs, for example, to XLAs to page response times. You can set XLAs to a complete end-to-end journey, so all the way from login through to the end step in a customer journey or user journey. So there's lots of different examples there. XLAs really are a way of thinking differently, an outside-in approach to thinking about your the experience which you're providing to your users.
Great. Thanks, John. The next question we have, with regards to APM and IT service management, it would be really useful if AppD could provide dependency data and service definitions to a CMDB aid in incident management. Are there any plans to pursue this capability?
Well, we already have great integration with ServiceNow. So ServiceNow effectively pulls out dependency data from our application flow maps into the ServiceNow service model, or CMDB. So that integration is already there. In terms of pulling our data out, you can do that anyway. I mean, I mentioned before about our platform is API based. We're open. We use REST APIs, and those are well documented into how to take data out. We're always looking at further integrations as well. So if anyone's got any suggestions about other products we should be integrating with, please kind of submit them forward. But definitely, the rich information in AppDynamics can be taken out, and our flow maps, because we show all those application dependencies. A lot of customers are using that to help them put together their service definitions.
Great. So I do want to just be conscious of the time. We're about 3 minutes to the top of the hour, so I think we'll only have time for 1 or 2 more questions. But if we don't get to your question, we will definitely reach out offline. So to the next one, can we monitor the application to which we don't own the source code for?
That's a good question, and the short answer is no. Our agents automatically instrument, and it's basically mainly custom applications, custom web or mobile applications, which we kind of monitor. So we need access to be able to instrument that application. So if you're thinking about a SaaS-based application, obviously we can't kind of monitor or instrument that. We can monitor some off-the-shelf applications though. So if you're looking at, for example, SAP Hybris, which is e-commerce platform for SAP, then obviously that's based in Java, so we can instrument it. The long answer here really depends on the underpinning language of that application. If it's Java, if it's .NET, if it's PHP, if it's C++, Node.js, yes, we can instrument. If it's a SaaS-based application and we can't access that application or put our agents onto the various application servers, then we can't instrument it.
Great, thanks, John. And I think we'll just have time for one more question. So how does AppD monitor Citrix-based applications?
Citrix-based, that's a good one. We always get this question. Citrix uses a proprietary protocol, which is ICA. So we don't instrument Citrix-based or Citrix-hosted applications today. If you want to look at monitoring Citrix, then what you should be looking at is one of the NPM tools, network performance monitoring tools, which kind of monitor over the wire. So we've got obviously relationships with companies like ExtraHop who are able to do that Citrix level monitoring. And the reason for this again is that it uses that proprietary protocol, which is the ICA protocol.
Great. Thanks, John. And thanks to the audience. We did get some great questions. I know we didn't get to all of them in this live Q&A part, but we'll definitely have somebody reach out offline so that we can make sure that you have the answers that you need. Before we fully close, just want to quickly remind you to check out the links that are available in the Resource Center widget if you haven't already. Once we close in the next minute or two, this whole view will change for you, and you won't be able to have access to the direct links. So you might as well just click through, so maybe you'll want them in the future. So just to kind of give an overview, if you want a more personalized demo, you can sign up, and we'll have someone reach out to get that scheduled. This would be a good opportunity if you have more specific use case questions you didn't really want to ask in a larger setting. You can also view a guided tour of AppDynamics or sign up for our free 15-day trial. In addition, there's a link from a live presentation we did at one of our previous conferences. If you enjoyed today's presentation, you'll also be interested in the following YouTube video, which is around how to use your AppDynamics deployment to transform IT service manager processes. So again, if you have any other questions that you didn't put in through the Q&A or you think about it afterwards, feel free to reach out to us at webinars@appdynamics.com.